turn on my mic. Okay. Hey, guys.
Hey, John.
John,
Hope you had a good long holiday.
uh,
It was something.
it was I had to go buy a new refrigerator, so that was
Okay. So I may not be at the Redfish meeting today. They're gonna start digging out my foundation.
well, you need to be there to relocate any of the uh
Are they giving you a shovel?
graves.
No. We're all meeting with the surveyor, me, the foundation guy, the grader. We're gonna put shovel and we're gonna figure out exactly where the house will be sited. So
Nice.
I need to be there and make sure they don't
You need to be
mess
there.
up. Yeah. Okay. So let's start the meeting. So for the SC pass down, that actually have a couple of things. I have a feeling if I go here, I won't see it. Let me go share my entire screen. Make life easy. Okay, you guys see this?
Yep.
Steering community pass downs. Okay. So everyone knows when the summit's going to occur. They'll have I think Michael Show sent out mail about updating of the key organizational documents, the bylaws, the IP policy, entirely operating procedures. So those check his email. They should all be on the site. But you might want to know about that. Second is the OCP staff has finally revised the format of revisions. So a year and a half ago, they went to revisions / versions. And that was proposed by someone who did that for a while. So a lot of the stuff in the contribution database is that way. And Beijing looked at it and said, well, that made no sense. We should just do versions. And it should be major, minor, and errata. So they've gone ahead and done all that. And so that's what this presentation actually shows, is that we're going back to a much more simple versioning mechanism that we have. And so that's, and then the presentations have all been contributed and they're being reviewed. So we should hear back from them in about 2 weeks, I think. Okay. So the second item, if I go back here, is what I'll call prescriptive interop testing or prescriptive conformance testing. So this was an idea that was sent to me, which was basically, can we actually test against a mockup? Can we as OCP just develop a mockup which reflects what our profile has and do that for testing people who do an implementation?
Well, how do you think I test profiles today with the lack of equipment?
Okay.
Absolutely test against a mockup.
Okay, so we don't do that as part of our conformance test. I mean, for Redfish, but we can do it as part of OCP because OCP actually makes prescriptive additional prescriptive requirements on top of Redfish, and the mockup could reflect that. And then we can have clients test against that, or develop against that, and we can go test against it. And that way, within OCP would have, quote, a higher level of interop testing that we can do in the Redfish lab.
I know specifically with the CDU profiles, Mick has been updating the DMTF mockups to make it pass OCP profile testing. So I'd say, yeah, you use mockups as best you see fit to verify profiles.
Do we need an additional tool to do that, or do we have all the tooling necessary to
No,
implement this?
we have all the tooling necessary. Just use the mockup server. You may need to set it to HTTPS mode, but that's pretty trivial. And then you just point the interrupt validator against it and look at the test report.
Okay, so it becomes it may be easier with cooling since we're intimately working with them. So does OCP then put out a set of mockups that are OCP conformant?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you want to have a standalone mockup for each class of equipment that represents, the minimal functionality needed for those devices? That's a good question.
Okay, because I think that's how I want to figure out how to formalize this. So we say, hey, the mockup is ready for baseline. So run against it, and because I know with the interop testing in Redfish, we still have deviations, I guess. People who interpret things a little bit differently. And we point it out, but we don't actually, attempt to fix it. And this way, it will drive people toward a higher level of interoperability. So if no one has an issue with this, I'll try to formalize this in a document and say, this is the way we want to go pursue things. And so not only can you contribute the profile, the usage guide, you can also contribute your markup. And that will just store all that in the GitHub, and people can pull and either run run the markup server. Any issues with that?
Nope. Sounds like
Okay.
a good direction.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's actually adding value if I go off and go do this. Okay. So pull request. So I've changed this up a little bit. I just want to run this the same way we run most other GitHub meetings. It's just go directly to pull request and then issues. I changed all this profiles listings that I have down to the bottom, where I just give the independent reader an idea of what the state of these things are. So everything in draft is within a folder and visible, because prior to that, they're either a pull request as a whip, which means still working on it, don't look at it, and pull review dash review, which means I think I got to a point where people can go comment on the pull request itself. And that would be similar to the ready to review label. Okay, so, oops. So pull request. Jeff, do you want to start with yours? Are any of these ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Incorporate feedback.
Yeah, I did some homework yesterday, and this is just grabbing all the feedback that Mike had, and I think, and I had a note from, I had a note in that issue as well. So there was, I can't remember which property it was, but it was one other change. So you can take a look. See, so yeah, just move the version to 1.0. Simplified the IP, or sorry, yeah, corrected the IPv4 stuff so that the writable properties, so they're not shown as writable, and then the stuff is instead is shown as mandatory in the in the static addresses, and the same is true for IPv6.
We don't want to make IPv4 static addresses mandatory.
Uh, well, it probably makes.
I guess someone may say, well, I only want to do IPv6.
Well,
So, yeah.
that's not where I was gonna go.
No. Or someone may say, you know, I only do DHCP. I'll never allow a static address.
Well,
I
that's, I
guess.
was trying to think.
Doesn't that come if
Yeah.
implemented?
No, I think I mean, it certainly was recommended. Um,
I can live with recommended until someone pushes back.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that. That might be better as mandatory.
Wait, mandatory means you have to have it whether you implement it or not.
Correct.
Right.
Well, but then again, practically speaking, who's going to implement something that doesn't support IPv4 static addresses?
No, point taken.
I say that now, and then of course someone's going to come back to us 6 months later and say, I don't do static addresses on this interface. Why are you penalizing me? So I don't know what that practical use case would be, but maybe.
But this is the lowest level we can.
Yeah,
just recommend it. And let the industry tell us what we should do.
Yeah, I mean, if they can't meet that bar, is this going to fix anybody? I mean, yeah, I mean the point of some of this is to make sure that if they have the functionality that they've exposed it through Redfish, and I think we probably got that covered in the Ethernet interface anyway. So I don't know if we're going to be helping anyone to make it mandatory, but
I guess if implemented gives a bit more strength, because if you implement static addresses for IPv4, you do need to show that property. So it's a bit stronger. Looking at it now, I would say we should probably take the same stance with IPv6 static addresses. Mandatory. So if implemented.
Okay, so make both those if implemented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm doing that in the background here. Okay. And then corrected that. Because it turns out you can't cut and paste between IPv4 and IPv6.
What? They're not the same technology. That's what more numbers.
This was news to me. I mean, I've done how many implementations?
It's just a version bump.
Right. Maybe they're not backward compatible.
Okay, so that gets removed. So this is just.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
and that was all corrections because they weren't. Sorry. Sorry.
Yes, some of them were not great requirements because actually open it up. I want to make sure that's an event destination.
It is.
Okay. Yeah, because a user not specifying those properties will not see that in the response coming back, and they're not modifiable after you create the event destination. So, keeping as recommended is the correct thing to do.
Yeah, and that was the only issue with the way that event service and event destination works is there's not really a good way to mandate that that the service supports the registry prefix filters.
Oh, you can do that if we elevate the requirement on event service to say this property is mandatory, and by the way, it shall contain the value true.
That's the way we'd have to do it. I did and when you get to event service, those properties are all mandatory, but we didn't put a value of true there. But that would be the way to force that.
Yeah, I don't think we want to take that stance just
Not
yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Do you want to keep going?
Yep, keep going. This is all good.
Okay. Yeah.
And yep, Jeff fixed that part to make those properties as mandatory, and they are not writable. They're read only. It's just capabilities.
Yep, and made them mandatory because there's capabilities. So we definitely need that to be discoverable. So that's why they're now mandatory.
Yep, and if you can just hard code it to false. License collections, if implemented, yeah, that's good.
And I added the URIs on log entry and log service just to show they're under manager.
Good.
And
That last one was feedback from Luke.
Yeah.
Why is it recommended?
Because you may not, it's really only needed if you want to allow a user to modify the timestamp or modify the offsets. And I guess with
Well,
Luke's case, any modifications to the date time are done at the manager level. And so having that in log service is kind of, well, useless.
it's extraneous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, you remove network supplied servers.
What's it populated?
That means if the resource exists.
Oh, okay. I
It's
never knew we had that. Okay.
yes, to cover the corner because this one, in addition to event destination, you may have a requirement to support the resource, but it's all client dictated. So at time zero, you have an empty configuration, and so you can't penalize the service for not surfacing this resource because no one's configured it yet.
Oh, okay.
So
So the resource doesn't exist yet. So yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So so from an implementation point, at the point where you create this thing,
Yeah,
you have to have these properties.
yeah, you're dependent on the client to create it, but once you create it, then all these requirements on the properties apply.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
just moved update
That's
service
it.
recommended.
Okay.
Oh, I would have gone the other way for update
Wait.
service.
What?
Which way, Mike?
Mandatory.
Remember we just got that from Luke or someone else that like we have products without updatable firmware.
Yeah,
That was the issue.
but is that going to be really future looking? Is that just a legacy
Well,
limitation?
I
the
don't
thing
know.
with all these profiles is how many people do you want to get up and say, yes, I passed that profile?
Right. Let's
If you raise the bar too high, people are going to say, I don't have that support, so I can't come on stage with you.
yeah.
At the same time, they may look at this with the blinders on going, oh, I'm not going to implement anything recommended, and we're stuck having firmware update discussions 5 years from now.
I don't think you drive that by driving the profile.
Okay.
I think you have to drive it some other way. Like that's why Rack Manager has firmware update. That's the first thing it does. And so the Rack Manager is going to turn down and says, I'm going to initiate firmware update on you. And so all the nodes I found that don't support this service. So
yeah, I guess I'm also looking at for my own selfish reasons. I want to be able to point my own people to this and say, you need to implement to the OCP profile. Now I have to add an additional layer that elevates update service to be mandatory for my own types of products.
Well, no, I would hope that on the class of equipment, right? I mean, the CDU, the PDU, the server, all of those bases, those baselines that build on this should absolutely elevate that at least on a class of equipment, so they can have, now you can have the argument with those, with the SMEs, with those product people.
I could buy that. At least for now, I wanted to, from an infrastructure perspective, I wanted to leverage the base profile as much as possible to avoid specifying those types of requirements. But you're right. I mean, we could take it on a case by case basis and say, you know what, in the CDU profile we elevate it, and in the PDU profile we elevate it. For something else, we leave it alone.
So, and the good news, Mike, is that by having by at least specking out the stuff that we want in the update service, right? We've got the multi-part.
Yeah,
so that as long as you elevate, all you have to do is elevate to say, yeah, now update service is mandatory, and then all these rest of these requirements just flow through. So it's like, okay, now if you have it, then you got to have this.
Yes, well, I'll have to do one other tweak. I want to make both simple update and multi-part as mandatory. But yeah, you're right. I can leverage all this as needed and minimize the amount of overlaying
Mhm.
Okay, so good.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm goodish. Let me just double check the issue I filed to make sure that covered
Hold on.
everything.
Yeah, don't click that yet, John. Let me. Here, well, I mean, here. Let me send the. There you go. Okay, I just got the other commit to get the
That's
to get those two
fine. That's
changes.
fine. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
That's fine. I may have missed it. Did you do both register client and outbound connection as if populated?
Yes.
Okay. I only noticed us glossing over one. I didn't
Now, yeah, I got.
register the other one. Okay, if you got both, then good. That's all right. Cool. You got that. You got that. All right.
9-.
Approved.
I can't delete.
No, because this was in a
This is my fork.
fork.
Okay, good. Okay, fine, fine. It's 1 second.
Can we do the CDU one since that's
Oh yeah,
been
that was
pretty
it.
stable, and I think we're just at a no, not component baseline.
Oh.
I mean, Mick's been happy on it so far. He's been hammering
Okay.
away, and I guess the only thing we need to do after this is showcase it with others. I also added in a rear door heat exchanger one, which Mick also said looks good. He talked to me on the side about that. But yeah,
Okay.
I guess just given the fact that even though we merge it, it's still off in its own
Right.
isolated directory, so it's not official yet, but it's at least getting it merged so people don't have to look at pull requests.
Okay. We have merge conflicts. How do we have merge conflicts?
No, we don't.
Oh, this is confirmed merge. Sorry. I'm so used to seeing merge conflicts. It's like shit. Sorry, my merges are never clean. Okay, anything else?
We could talk about
PowerShell
that.
profile?
Yeah. So going through Jeff's PDU profile, I wanted to align the PowerShell profile with his changes and also reference the base profile as opposed to the base server management. Um,
Oh, you were okay.
yeah, I also had some changes back into the PDU profile.
Oh, okay. Wait, why did this? Oh, you changed it. Okay.
Yeah, I shortened it. Yeah, having location indicator active on the circuits did not seem
Yeah, that's
correct.
mhm.
Yeah, we moved that to the unit level.
Yep.
And plug is not always needed there because you may not have a plug for a circuit. I think some of this was copy and paste because you had a stale conditional requirement to juggle between mains and branches, and then you broke it out to use cases, so you don't need to do that
Right.
conditional requirement anymore. But yeah, this is all in the mains context, I think. So just make it mandatory. Same thing for user label. It was already in the mains context with the use case, and so making it mandatory.
Yep, same there.
So
Power,
was all this just clean up from going to
It's-
use cases?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
but it's also tying off with PowerShelf. So I sat down with Jeff to go back and forth between what is actually consistent between the two, what needs to be different, what is future looking, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And some of them were mistakes and others are not.
Okay, so what is the next, once we approve this, what's the next task? Well, let's go through this first.
I think for both of these, it's time to go present them to those work groups that that own those product segments, right? Is that Rack and Power for both of them, or is PowerShelf somewhere else?
It's rack and power.
It's in Rack and Power too. Okay.
Yep.
I'd say we can do both at the same time because it's all gonna be the please go read.
Oh, this is the document, sorry.
Yeah, and so this was updating the PowerShelf spec to be consistent with how um, we're trying to reference other documents.
Okay. And this is still in draft, right? So
It's still in draft. Same thing with so there's also PowerShelf management changes where I leverage a lot of what Jeff was doing for the PDU, where I broke out mains and branches to their own use cases, but they're not copy and paste with what's in PDU because PowerShelves are going to have different knobs and buttons. Um,
okay. Okay, you guys are selling this. So
and maybe we need to create a base rack power profile the way that liquid cooling is going, but we'll do that later.
Yeah,
I did like how use cases cleaned up a lot of the requirements.
yeah.
And also I did gloss over a lot of the requirements and assume they'd be common between both branches and main circuits, but going through specs with Jeff Moore, realizing, oh no, they're quite different in a lot of regards.
okay. So let's stick this back to the top there. Oh, there it is. I think that's it. So I'm still doing component. And Linda isn't here. And that's been done. Okay. guess we go to the new ones. Oh, okay.
I don't think there's any status on this other than we need to solve it somehow. Oh, you get micro
So,
breaks?
oh, you bet, man. I faithfully cancel, delete them off of my screen. Okay, so oh yeah, oh yes, I should go label these to make sure that they go through a state where they've been accepted and don't have to go through them again. Did we do the same thing with this?
Which one? Nope, that's a new one.
Okay.
No, if you have SSDP implemented, you need to support those other properties. So it already calls out SSDP as recommended.
Mhm.
So if you've implemented SSDP, those are mandatory.
Right. Why would you? Yeah, I don't understand why those would be not particularly useful.
And I believe we actually call out that in the spec about making those user configurable if you support SSDP.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to double check now.
So I'm gonna say,
Yeah, this is making sure that people have the right user behavior to allow the configuration of that stuff. That's the
Nope, the only thing we specify in the spec is to enable, disable it. We don't call out other configurations as mandatory, but I don't know why you wouldn't have that configurable.
I mean the notify, well, sorry, the not the notify, the interval, I would say, is you really want to have that.
right. So yeah. So my concern is purely the way it's worded, right? It's kind of say, can you? Yeah, it doesn't explain why this anyone would want to do this. So that brings the door back to him as to, don't put in issues where you don't explain why you want the change to occur.
Yeah, because let's see,
Well, I wonder because notify is only needed if I think if you have more of the UPnP functionality where you send notifications asynchronously, which you
well,
don't need to support.
isn't that I thought that was the core part, no?
No, the core part is the msearch query.
Oh, M search. Okay. Yeah. Uh, yeah, see the notify multicast interval. That's you set that to 0 to disable notify. So let's see if you don't support. I mean, if I just don't support notifies, is that? So I mean, all those three properties are all around the notify.
Yeah, so if you
Oh,
don't, so if you're purely a listen only, you never notify, then you don't really need those properties.
yeah, okay. Well, in that case, I mean, if it doesn't get in the way of M search, if I still get my if I can still do discovery per spec, and this is only for the more for UPnP or for the more passive notify messages, well, maybe that is okay.
Well, do we change it to if implemented?
No, I would
I would just make it recommended.
I would just make it recommended. I'm looking to see if did you look in the spec, Mike, to see what else was even mentioned?
No, it wasn't even mentioned. it just calls it out as a high, it says Redfish devices may implement additional UPnP defined SSDP messages to announce the availability of the software. If implemented, services shall allow the end user to disable this traffic separately from the mSearch response functionality. So the spec is
Oh.
worded, if you implement this, then you need to have control
Yeah.
over it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then here he mentions that you've already done that.
Oh, okay. Well,
So the answer is okay.
so I'm sorry, John, can you scroll back up? So in the baseline, did I not include those?
No, he said you did it already. So he asked for the baseline, right? And then he says, in baseline Redfish
Protocol
services,
tables and
you know,
okay.
you made those optional.
Ratings are optional. Recommended
So
protocol.
he's just trying to line the baseline up with this Redfish baseline.
Well, that's not what that's, well, that's not what it says there.
Really? He says the remaining attributes, these three are optional.
No, that's not.
No,
that's
not
what
based
that's
on
saying.
not
Yeah.
based on what he just copied and pasted in there.
Right. If that's what's in baseline, those are
Those are mandatory.
The difference there, John, is that
Yeah,
has
you're
to
right.
be
Yeah.
writable. That's why it's the rest of those are all still mandatory.
Okay.
So okay, so yeah, that was my question. Is like if we're changing it in the quote in the old baseline, then we want it to be equivalent in the new baseline.
But if we don't call out a write requirement, we at least want to show it. So you could say notify IPv6 scope is whatever the disabled function is.
Well,
So you still
the notify is it's the disable is the multicast interval is where the
can't you just hard code that to 0? So
yes, but that would indicate that but that tells you that you actually have notify support is what that would tell me. I mean, I'm thinking that what you would probably want to do is we make those recommended, but then do a conditional like hey, if you support notify, meaning so tie it to like the interval, and then make the other two, if multicast interval seconds is present, then these other two become mandatory.
So are you worried that someone may see the property and assume that they can write it and set it to something other than the static value?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, in the sense of seeing it there tells me that there's some the notify is being sent, but okay, but let's see if I saw that notify set to 0 and I can't change it, then it's disabled and I can't enable it. Is that effectively telling me I don't support notify?
Yeah, it's harder to tell.
It's kind of, yeah, I think it not none of that. If none of those are there, that I think that tells me just as much. This definition being 10 years old, we would have done this a little different, I think.
Okay, so what we decided that they will be recommended,
Or
but
if
then
implemented.
Yeah, if implemented or yeah, well, we should probably do if implemented there because it's not it's not at the object level. So it's not telling you like if you do SSDP, it's really if you've done notify, then you need these 3 properties. And this is issue 87. Okay, I'll go do a poll for that right now.
do you want me to wait for your poll or just go on with issues? That's
It'll take me a minute.
okay.
But Mike, I'm gonna make that if implemented and then a write requirement mandatory, right? I mean, if you do this stuff.
Yes.
What's this use case typo? So this issue is fairly old, I believe. Yeah, it's well, March. I don't know if we actually. Okay, 1 and 2 are fixing 70. Yeah, so after 3, he wants to add everything back in. So when we added it, we had drawers, rack mount, and sled because those were the ones that was server.
Mm-hmm.
He has a whole bunch of other ones that he wants to go use.
Which profile does he want this in?
Baseline. So in baseline, we added
So
use cases to do separation
so
of chassis type.
yeah, so for the server baseline, the rack mount server,
Mhm.
I want to keep that limited. I don't see how you could be an OCP conformant server and be labeled as a cartridge. I mean, if he has specific ones to include in there because that's their design, sure, but not going to toss everything in there because then you get back to the issue where you don't know how to distinguish between what's rack mount, what's a module inside of a server, and how to test those differently. It's yeah, we can add other ones. It's just we can't add them all in.
Right. So I guess I don't know if the question is for the way we constructed use cases, if it doesn't fit into any of the use cases that are listed, what applies?
Nothing. It won't get tested.
Right.
Okay, so he
It doesn't this profile doesn't apply, right? If it's
Yeah, it just doesn't apply.
yeah. So I mean, it's not going to keep it's not going to. I mean, if it's a the use case comparison there is looking well. So remember the point here was that we were trying to get the outer shell, right? So it was that's what we were trying to restrict that use case. So if you have other chassis that are cartridges or sleds or whatnot, then this use case doesn't apply to you. So it won't that none of that would prevent you from passing a profile.
Right.
What if he wants it to apply to his profile? Scroll up just a little bit.
exactly. If he has something called standalone, right, and he's made it a standalone, we go to a profile. It says, "Oh, you're not drawer, rack mount, or sled." Skip. We're done. Right.
Yeah. So if he has a valid use case in terms of, hey, I made an OCP server and I use my chassis type as standalone, that's a perfectly good reason why we would add it to the use case list.
Scroll up. What is he saying? It says failure not.
Scroll up, John. Up.
Oh. So there's 3 issues. These
Oh,
2 are already dealt with.
Oh, it's because you can fail a profile for not supporting a use case.
Yeah.
So
It's mandatory. You got to support it.
yeah. So how are you building a server
Remove.
that doesn't have one of the expected chassis types?
What? Wait, what is that? What is that first one?
That first one is It's called primary chassis requirements. So
that
that's the use case title.
But is it something, because he's got it all highlighted around that period. What is going on?
I don't know.
I'm there. Let me look.
I'm guessing the period in the title is causing some HTML issue with the interop validator. I don't know exactly.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm not. This is. Okay, never mind. This I'm sorry. I'm looking at the baseline. Like baseline doesn't have chassis.
No, this is the server. This is the
service
this is
baseline. This is the
yeah.
OCP. Yeah, this is the old baseline, right? That's weird. So that seems like a.
So
That's a bug.
It might be a bug, but I also tested this and I didn't get the same results he was getting. So we may need to look at this more. This may be a tooling bug because there shouldn't be any issue with having periods in the title.
Right.
So let's put a push pin on those two issues to double check the validator. So let's just focus on use case 3 for now because we need the other ones would require us to reproduce. So issue 3. Okay. Scroll down. Scroll down. Yeah, he didn't explain why. He just wants all the added back.
Right. So instead, we should ask him which ones he wanted added back.
Well, I guess with issue 3, it's well, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
we can add things back in, but we can't just add them all wholesale because that's not the intent of the profile.
Right. So
Yeah.
my presumption of his problem.
He has a statement, not a question of a problem.
Right.
We have other values. Yes, I'm sure you do. And
Do you
I'm not
do you
trying
really
to sound, yeah, it's like,
it's
you really want this applied to those other use cases? Because I can see a card that doesn't want to.
Exactly. An IP-based drive, that is not an OCP server, so why would you want to apply that? So we need to understand what he's trying to do.
Yeah, and again, with multiple chassis, that was the point, was getting the outer skin to have requirements for true data and other stuff and the manager pointers and whatnot. But if you've got a nested chassis, then you don't need to have all that stuff. That's why we have the separate use cases.
Yeah.
So it may be that he wants to add another use case for chassis, and that's also fine.
Oh, there we go.
I asked
so
him
you
the
missed,
question.
you
I
missed
remember.
So
this is what I thought he was. His problem was that before we enforce these 3 values, right? He created some baseline and just labeled it server or standalone. Right? And now, all of a sudden, this new baseline comes out, and he runs against it, and it's just skipping his test because it doesn't recognize standalone. So I think all we need to do to make him happy is to put standalone.
He also said other. I'm a little concerned about that one. I'd like to understand that one more as to why they're even using other in the first place.
I understand. So I'm willing to put a standalone in there without a problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me.
Well, let's be careful. If we add standalone, then that was written as a rack mount server, right? Correct? Isn't that the?
It's an OCP server. I don't know
if
it's
an OCP
necessarily rack mount.
Okay.
Right, but OCP has nothing which isn't rack mount because they happen to be in a rack. But
yeah, okay. Well, I'm just thinking about the distinctions of what things would you have in a Redfish chassis that was a rack mount versus a standalone, and it's things like the rack placement, it's some of that stuff. So I mean, if we need to do that, then we can build up a separate, we could separate that stuff out. I don't know if it's any that's in there today.
Right. Okay.
Because I don't think we haven't built we haven't adapted the server to the.
Oh yeah, the server right now doesn't have location.
Yeah. Okay. Then it's okay. But I'm thinking that when we adapt the server profile to the service baseline, that we'll probably want to make those distinctions.
Right. So for this, it's okay to put standalone. I just push back for other. So
Yeah.
we can't.
All right, and I need to drop, otherwise I'm not eating today.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Don't think there's anything else I need to go through today. Oh, Jeff, I don't know when you came in. Oh, Helen, sorry.
He came in
Just a
midway.
couple minutes after I couldn't, anyway.
He missed all the good.
Okay. Okay, so I brought up prescriptive interop testing, which is basically using of mockups
Mhm.
to do testing, and everyone agreed that's a good thing to go do. We'll try to make that. I'll go write up a document on it, but we'll add it to as one of the things that we can add in the GitHub. We can add the profile, the usage guide, and the mockup, and then we'll have instructions on how to use the mockup server to bring it up and test
Cool.
against it.
And are we tying those two together? Use this thing against, I mean, gonna read me somewhere or?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, well, I think we got directional that yeah, that's a good thing to go do. We have all the tooling in place to go do that, and John, you go figure out how to go do that. So I'll come back with a recommendation on,
Okay.
on how we should tie all that stuff together. But it's a good idea to get an additional level of interoperability that we don't have with just the efficient conformance test, and it's something that OCP has the prescriptive power to go do.
Awesome.
Okay.
It kind of, where my mind immediately goes is, gee, can anybody upload a mockup that passes a profile? Think
What do
about
you
it.
mean?
I mean,
Wait,
if I have
what
a
do you mean?
mockup, if I have a server that passes an OCP profile, can I upload those components and merge them to the mockup?
Why? I don't know why you would not to do that. So what I have is we have a
As long as that's covered in your instructions.
no. Question is why we would
I
let
don't
anyone
know.
do that?
I could see somebody wanting to do it. I don't know.
Because I see the usage guide, the profile, and the mockup all sync together.
Right.
Okay, so someone can go download the mockup and say run against it and say, hey, if I write a client that runs against this, I should be able to run interoperably with anything that conforms to the profile.
I can just see, like, you use an example A and example B, and somebody has, well, I'm a vendor, my example C passes too. So I guess the answer is you got to make the profiles generic enough where it doesn't favor one implementation. It doesn't look like an implementation.
Yeah.
If you put model from vendor A and model B from vendor B, I can see vendor C going, why am I left out?
Oh yeah, that's why the mockup would, to me, a generic mockup from
Okay,
Katoso.
okay, there we go.
And then say, hey,
That
this
was the
is it.
guidance.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So I think we're at the top of the hour. I can't tell. Hold on,
We got 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. Well, if nothing else, I don't think we need to go through any additional issues.
Nope. Cool.
So with that, thank you for showing up after a long weekend. I'll call the meeting.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. Talk to you later. Bye.